Welcome to episode 7 of season 5 of the Filmmaker Film Watcher podcast. I'm filmmaker Richard Di Gregorio.
And I am film watcher Greg Ralph. Yea, verily, gadzooks my liege, thou art a mooncalf. Now, there's a reason I said that.
Well, that sounds confusing to every listener.
I'm confused.
But why is that? It's because we're doing Shakespeare.
Millennial Shakespeare.
Millennial Shakespeare this episode.
By which we mean we're looking at some films of some of the greater works of Shakespeare, if I dare say that, and looking at films that were made either side of the year 2000.
Well, the first film we're going to discuss is 2010's The Tempest.
Indeed, followed by 2021's The Tragedy of... Can I say the name on a podcast? Because I know you can't in the theatre.
You can. Because
otherwise it's going to be a very confusing podcast.
You can.
And then...
Yes.
Speaks to lady. So yes, I'm sorry. Got completely distracted there. Our second film is The Tragedy of Macbeth from 2021. Yes.
And the third film we're going to discuss is 1996 Kenneth Branagh's Hamlet.
4-hour epic.
The 4-hour
Hamlet.
epic. Now, yes, absolutely.
But we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. It's not going to be 4 hours.
That would be one of our longer episodes, I'm sure. So why don't you get us going, just to keep this moving along at that nice fast pace you so love, and tell us about our first film, Ricardo.
Sure thing. Julie Taymor's The Tempest is a 2010 adaptation of William Shakespeare's classic play of the same name. Julie Taymor, who has also directed films such as Across the Universe and Shakespeare's Titus, really infuses a unique artistic vision into this version. It's a vibrant and visually captivating rendition of the classic Shakespeare play. The difference in this version of the play is the switching of the lead character of Prospero, usually a man, to Prospera, a woman. The Tempest tells the story of Prospera, Helen Mirren, the rightful Duke of Milan, who was banished to a remote island with her daughter Miranda, Felicity Jones. After the death of her husband, Prospera frames her brother Antonio, Chris Cooper, and his ally, King Alonso, David Strathairn, for crimes against her. With the help of the island's spirit, Ariel, Ben Whishaw, Prospera plots revenge and seeks justice by conjuring a storm that will bring the king and his courtiers on the island to face Prospera's sorcery. It's all serious and dramatic, but there's also a classic love story here between Miranda and Prince Ferdinand, Reeve Carney, the son of King Alonso, falling for one another deeply. Then you have Caliban, Djimon Hounsou, Stefano, Alfred Molina, and Trinculo, Russell Brand, who provide the comic relief. Their interactions together provide a real contrast to the more serious aspects of the play, and it really is a mix of drama, romance, comedy, and fantasy that some would say resembles the ancient Italian theatrical comedy tradition of commedia dell'arte. Now, I would agree to some parts. Shakespeare was not known to have travelled to Italy. However, with 9 years of his life missing, one would assume he had to have travelled to Italy because there's so much commedia in not only this work, but also A Comedy of Errors and also As You Like It. The visual elements of the film are definitely engaging, although the effects do look a little cheap at times. The sets and costumes are detailed and fantastical. The cinematography, vibrant, and really draws the viewer in. Now, I didn't love the musical score with the use of electric guitar and sort of a rock vibe, but it didn't spoil this. The performances are all strong, and Helen Mirren is just so watchable here. Look, overall, I just found it was a visually good film and a well-filmed version of the play. Now, I don't think it's Shakespeare's greatest play. I don't love it, but this version is one that's enjoyable. Greg, what did you think?
I love the way you say her name. Prospera. I can't do what you're doing.
Prospera.
That lovely Italian kind of roll to it, which is very appropriate.
Prospera.
Because they're from Milan and
Naples.
And Naples. Yeah. It's like Naples.
Napoli.
Napoli, sorry. Oh, sorry. Anyway, so look, I agree with you on almost everything.
Yeah.
So it is a very visually impressive film from the get-go. Hounsou's makeup is very good.
Very good.
So he is a black man, for those who don't know who he is, running around basically in a Tarzan loincloth, and a very fit kind of guy, and he is covered in parts with makeup that make him look like he's actually Anglo beneath.
That's right.
And one of his eyes, so his eyes which are very dark brown, one of his eyes is blue. It's quite a startling look.
Oh,
and it really works.
It does work, yeah.
And I think there's so much to commend in this in terms of the look.
Yes.
I agree with you. There are a couple of special effects that when I was watching, I was thinking MTV 1990s kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
That this film is 2010. It's already, those parts are already starting to date a bit. But
It was a $20 million movie. Like it had a big budget.
Yeah, well, some of that would have gone on Star Power.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Did you see where it was filmed?
Where was it filmed?
It's filmed in Hawaii.
Oh, right, yes.
And I assume on some kind of volcanic island with parts that are quite rocky and barren, other parts where they're kind of these very twisted kind of trees.
Yeah.
That are sort of look half stunted in their growth.
Great location.
It looks like a wild Shakespearean magical kind of place as a location. That absolutely works.
It does work, yeah.
I think the visual treatment of Ariel when he, she, they.
Yeah, it's a very androgynous character, isn't it? You don't know.
And Ben Whishaw really pulls that off.
Well, sometimes it looked like in some of those shots because Ben Whishaw is got no clothes on for
there's some sort of crotch pad that but it blends in. You don't see it.
You don't see anything, but it looks like at one point that he's got breasts.
He has. That's when he's being the mermaid.
Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. So it's really interesting. It's a really interesting character.
No, it's carried off well.
Yes, it is. But some of the effects again.
Oh, no, I like the films. The ones where he was playing with the boat, with the storm and the fire.
That was fine. That was
when
great.
he was zipping between the trees and was of the trees.
Yes, very good.
The two bits that I thought didn't work, one of them was when Prospera puts on the kind of the Starlight show for the young lovers.
Yes.
It was like it was too short or not quite there or a bit dated. I'm not sure. It just didn't work. And there was something a bit later in the film, I think, where I felt the same way. There were exceptions. But so look, you and I generally aligned except for one big thing.
What's that?
I don't think all the performances are fantastic.
Oh, really?
Oh, no. And there was one that I just loathed. So
really? I didn't have any problem with the performances at all.
I think Reeve Carney doesn't have much to do as Prince Ferdinand.
Okay.
No, he's not the worst.
No, he's not. But just to say, it's a really nothing role. It's not. There's not a lot to this character.
Look, he doesn't have much to do.
He just pines for Miranda. Like
he meets the brief,
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas Miranda, Felicity Jones, she has a bit more to do, but a lot of her stuff is kind of pining as well. But she just has more presence.
It's true. Yeah.
Although I have to say, one thing that worried me is that it's not hard to work out that she's meant to be 15 years old. You hear that twice.
Yeah, right.
That she was 3 when they left Milan and they'd been there 12 years. So she's 15.
Yeah.
And she's 27 playing 15.
Yeah, yes.
But the idea that Prospero is Prospero in the original version, is using his 15-year-old daughter for the prince. Yeah. Now, I know that 15 was a different 15 then as to now. Yes. I get that. But even so, I thought, look, they played with the text so much by making Helen Mirren's character a woman, for example, they could have easily slipped a decade in there and said that she was 25. It wouldn't have mattered.
No, it wouldn't have. But also, the switching
she doesn't look 15.
The switching of the genders there for the lead doesn't make any difference.
Oh, no, it doesn't make a difference. But
I think it's really good.
No, for the better.
Yeah, it's for the better.
Because then it adds that whole kind of element to the storyline that Prospera was the wife of the Duke.
Yep.
And when the Duke died, her brother uses the fact that she's a woman and that she's been doing magic and therefore, she's a witch to have her banished. So that actually adds a very believable element to the story. So I have no problem with that. I just think if you've done that, why not make Miranda a bit older? But look, that's a bit of a quibble.
Okay, who didn't you like?
Well, hang on, I'm working up to it. Yeah. So Jaimin Hansu...
Yes.
When he first started, I thought, I don't know about this. But then he really warmed up.
Oh, I thought he was very good, yeah.
So here's the big reveal. Russell Brand as Trinculo.
Oh, come on.
I hated it.
No.
I cringed every time.
Oh, come on. He's meant to be that character. He's a zany. He's a zany
He's Russell Brand doing Russell Brand.
No, he's like an Arlecchino in Commedia. He's the silly character, the comic relief.
I understand the character. I'm talking about the performance.
No, he was fine.
No,
absolutely fine.
When he first came on, and Hansu hadn't really warmed up for me much at that stage. It was more after that when I thought his performance really took off. And then Alfred Molina came on.
He's good as well.
Alfred Molina, I think, is fantastic.
He's always very good.
Yes.
He's always good, though.
But he came on, he just gave us a little smile. he swore. I'm not sure if that was part of the script or he actually tripped, but he swore, and I thought, oh, I feel like I'm in safe hands again.
Yeah.
Because I really didn't like Brand, and it just never got better.
The thing is, if it wasn't... Okay, let me ask you a question. If you didn't know Russell Brand at all, and Russell Brand's brand was it, you didn't know that, I think it probably would have been different.
No.
Because you know it's Russell Brand. I think if it was somebody new you didn't know, you'd probably like it.
I felt like it was someone who wasn't really an actor who was being coached.
I thought he did the text... I thought he did the text really justice.
We will have
for that
to
role.
agree to disagree.
No, I just think it's fine. I don't think he didn't find the text hard, and I understood him. And there's the one sort of test when you're looking at Shakespeare. If you're not understanding what they're talking about,
Yep.
then it's not good Shakespeare. You should be able to understand what is going on. And amazingly, I think through all the films,
And to feel that the
it's very
actors
different.
understand it as well.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a bit of a through all these different Shakespeare films. I must say, combining them all, they are all visually very good.
Yes.
That's one thing that they all are, is visually stunning. But anyway, we'll get to
I found that one of the things that was in my mind as I watched these three films was the American performers.
Yeah.
Because I remember years ago when I saw Ian McKellen's Richard III, I didn't think that Robert Downey Jr. or Annette Bening were as good as the rest of the cast.
It's a great version.
It is, but I'm just saying that those two performances stood out for me because I didn't think that was good, and it left me wondering, are Americans as good? And then back in, I think, beginning of season 3 it was, we reviewed Branagher's Much Ado About Nothing.
Yes.
And I felt the same way about Denzel Washington, and I think Keanu Reeves in that. So I was kind of watching out for that in all three films, and when we get to Hamlet's, there was one performance where I thought, no, that is really not working, and I think it might have been cultural. But across the board otherwise, it wasn't an issue. So in this film, you've got two Americans amongst the players. You've got David Strathairn as King Alonso, and you've got Chris Cooper as the scheming brother of Prospero. And if I didn't know they're American actors, I wouldn't have picked it in that sense. They really fitted in, they worked. They were just part of the cast. And so in this particular version, full marks to the Americans, basically.
Yeah, I really like Julie Taymor. I like her artistic sensibilities. I like her. She's got a vision, and that's what I love about her direction. Whether it works or not, there's a vision there. And I remember when I saw Titus, which is the other...
Because I haven't seen that.
Which was very, very good, very dark, very bloody.
I've heard,
but it's very, very good. I was looking forward to seeing this because I hadn't seen this yet. This is the first time I'd seen it. But there's sometimes I think, and we'll probably talk about it with the other Shakespeares as well, that sometimes it's good to just, when a performer's got a monologue or is saying a piece, just allow them to speak. I think sometimes with the Tempest, I think Taymor just wanted to do too much. Just thought, the audience is going to be bored. Let's do a visual thing where there's going to be lots of visuals in the back of it. But I think it takes away sometimes from some of the monologues that she's trying to say to you. There's a lot of noise around, and you're trying to engage with Mirren and engage with all this stuff going on as well. So I think in some parts, sometimes you can just pull back from the visual a little bit and just let them speak.
Yeah, look, I wouldn't disagree with that. I would add to it, though, that one of the things that stood out from this film for me was that the characters all felt very warm, very human, very real.
Yes, true.
And so, I felt engaged in the story as story. For most of these films, I'll admit, I had to have the subtitles on because I just find it hard to tune into the Shakespearean language.
Yes.
Macbeth was a bit different because I know Macbeth a lot better. So I had to do that to kind of, follow what they were saying in terms of, the more of the detail. But the story, the flow, the characters, their interactions, I thought worked really well. I think this is a really good interpretation of the film.
I do too.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to share 3 fun facts with you. Number 1, do you know what Helen Mirren's first Shakespearean performance was?
No.
She played Caliban.
I did hear that.
Sure, easy to say now.
No, I did hear that because I think she told that to Julie Taymor when they had a meet. And I'll tell you what, though, it was dreadful at the box office. I mean, it didn't do well. Judging by IMDb, it was a $20 million budget and it made $405,000 or something. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, but are you surprised? I mean, none of these are done particularly well at the box office. Including Hamlet. Although Macbeth's a different situation because it's Apple TV, so I'm not sure what box office actually is there. So, second fun fact.
Yeah.
When I first encountered the character of Caliban
Yes.
was in a DC Teen Titans comic from 1971 where Caliban was the bad guy, but actually in the story of Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting. Okay.
I've got the cover here to show you. The story
Okay.
is Intruder of the Forbidden Crypt. So, go out there and find it, folks. And the third little fun fact is I was actually in a production of The Tempest
Oh, were you?
at school.
Oh,
See if you can guess which character I played. I was in year 8. So that's, 14 years old.
okay.
And it was the main actors.
King Alonso.
The main actors were 3 or 4 years older than me.
Or were you King Alonso?
Nope.
No. Okay. Which one?
One of the dogs.
Oh,
Three of us who lived near the school were summoned out of class and told we were in this production. We had to wear brown bodysuits and tights and wear some of those
yeah.
$5 plastic masks of dogs. And we had to come on stage, chase Trinculo and co off, which is done much more impressively with graphics in this movie, folks. And that was bad enough. But in fact, these masks are so bad that you couldn't actually see through them.
Oh, my goodness.
So I and the other 2 guys were running up on stage, kind of holding these masks, and just so we could see and not fall off and break
goodness.
something.
Wow.
While they played a soundtrack of Vicious Dogs. It was not my theatrical high point.
Wow. Okay.
But, okay, enough about me, for the moment at least. What are you giving this?
I'm giving it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because like I said, it's a good version of the play. If you like The Tempest, I think you're going to really like this. The only version I'd actually seen of The Tempest on film is, I think it was Cassavetes did a version.
Haven't seen it. I've seen Prospero's books, but that's not really this.
And that was, it's very 80s, very sort of, or 70s or 80s feel, very different. But this is great. It's a really good version. So I'll check it out. What are you going to give it?
Well, ditto, 7 out of
Yep.
10. And, walks all over the one that I was in all those years ago, may I say. Look, I found it a very intelligent and engaging reinterpretation of
Yep.
what's supposed to be Shakespeare's final play.
Yeah.
There's a lot in it. I think it really worked. I just felt it was undermined by Brand's performance. We're not going to agree on that, obviously.
Nope.
And in balanced hand in, some of the sound and fury. I'm mixing my Shakespearean plays here.
Yeah.
But, those visual effects, some of it just didn't really quite work. But overall, I think all 3 of these films are very worth seeing.
Methinks, Greg, thou must needs tell me of this film called The Tragedy of Macbeth. Speak of it, if thou wouldest, for my eager ears do crave the recounting of such.
Wouldest. I think thou hast.
Wouldst.
I think thou hast proved that thou art a mooncalf, good sirrah. Okay. While Ricardo has a little giggle to himself in the background, I'll get started, shall I? Okay. Macbeth is the Shakespearean play that I know best. I studied it for 2 years at the end of high school with 2 very different teachers. And I also have strong memories of watching Roman Polanski's 1971 film at school. Now, while I'm doing all these personal links to Shakespeare, I'll just remember that I was 13, and my chief memory of watching that film is one of the religious brothers putting his hand over the projector lens so that we wouldn't see Francesca Annis's nude walking scene as Lady Macbeth, which I've only just realised means that they must have seen that scene themselves to know to protect our moral purity. But anyway, I digress. I was interested to see this latest version of the play that shall not be named in theatres. This 2021 film is the first directed by one of the Coen brothers, Joel, without the involvement of the other, Ethan. It tells the story of Macbeth, Denzel Washington, a Scottish lord who has defeated a traitor to the throne of King Duncan, Brendan Gleeson. And while returning from battle, he meets 3 witches, all played by Catherine Hunter, who seems to be a remarkable contortionist. And these witches promise that Macbeth is to become king. They also prophesy that future kings will be the descendants of Macbeth's companion, Banquo, Bertie Carvel, with magnificent eyebrows. Egged on by his wife, Frances McDormand, Macbeth kills Duncan in their home and then claims the throne. But he becomes insecure in the face of the prophetic promise made to Banquo, and bloodthirsty in removing this and other perceived threats to his throne, while Lady Macbeth's guilt leads her into sleepwalking and madness. It does not end well. This film's most notable feature is its strikingly beautiful black and white cinematography, working closely with set and costume design. It is well worth watching, just to enjoy the artistry on display. It's deliberately theatrical, with a visual tone reminiscent of The Seventh Seal, Ingmar Bergman's 1957 masterpiece. It was shot by Bruno Delbonnel, who also filmed Amélie, Across the Universe. I hadn't made that connection with Julie Taymor, but Amélie, Across the Universe, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, and Darkest Hour. Delbonnel lost the 2022 Oscar to Dune, which is not a film I've seen, but can only assume is astonishing to have bested the tragedy of Macbeth. There are many image transitions that will last long in my mind, such as moving from a castle court to a remote country crossroad, and the ruined cottage there surrounded by crops that appears a number of times in the story. A moon in a black sky that turns out to be a spotlight. Macbeth's dagger of the mind that turns out to be the handle of the door leading to Duncan's kill site. And a storm of leaves that blows through a window to batter Macbeth, and how his great hall then becomes the woods for the final battle. And beyond those transitions, other memorable images for me include the many high-contrast geometrical shapes within the castle, including brightly lit rain falling through a circle into a darkened courtyard, Lady Macbeth sleepwalking on the edge of a cliff, and Macbeth's use of his own blood in that final battle. The film is crowded with strong actors, including a surprise appearance by versatile Stephen Root, who seems to be in everything as the porter. But I'm not a fan of Denzel Washington's performance. We reviewed, as I said earlier, Kenneth Branagh's Much Ado About Nothing at the beginning of our third season, and I wasn't convinced then that he had Shakespearean chops. He's improved in his delivery, but he felt one note weary for me from the outset, only impressing in the final scenes when Macbeth discovers his fire. Joel Cohen has significantly edited Shakespeare's text for his film, cutting and rearranging. The most interesting thing he does is to combine characters to reshape the role of Lord Ross, Alex Hassel, so that he becomes a Machiavellian kingmaker, playing all sides. There's even a suggestion that Ross kills Lady Macbeth by pushing her down the stairs. Ross's payment to an old man, also played by Catherine Hunter, suggests that the witches may in fact be his agents. But it's all a bit muddy, and I wish Cohen was a little clearer. Otherwise, his film could be full of sound and fury signifying nothing, which means it risks becoming a tale told by an idiot. Ricardo, what didst thou think?
Look, Macbeth is not one of my favourite Shakespeares. It never was. I mean, we studied it and everything at high school, and you know, and I've seen many versions of it on film and everything as well. But it's not my favourite. This is beautiful to look at.
Oh, it's stunning.
If you want to see a beautifully photographed black and white, I mean, it's some of the most stunning black and white images I think I've
and again,
on film.
recognising that's also due to the costumes and sets.
Absolutely, because all the sets,
it just works well together.
It's perfect in terms of the lines, the light. The angles, it's just...
Mathematicians will love it.
Oh, they really will. It's really beautifully done. Like you watch it just for that, because it is stunning to look at. I thought the witches, well, one witch really,
it was a trinity of witches, 1 in 3 and 3 in 1. Yeah,
that's right. Which I thought that was very good, and I loved her performance. I think they got a contortionist or something, because the one part
she's apparently a very well-known actor, both for playing physically demanding roles, but also male characters as well.
Right. Wow. She's.
I'd never heard of her before, but I looked her up, and I'd like to see more of her.
Yeah, she's very good.
Did you pick her as the old man?
I did. Yes, I did.
I had to look it up. I thought I know this face.
No, I did pick that. But I must say, I didn't feel a lot. I was enjoying it cinematically.
Yes.
But I wasn't feeling anything for the characters. It wasn't drawing me in emotionally at all.
Look, I totally agree.
You know, and whereas it was with Shakespeare, as we're going to talk about, even Tamoor's The Tempest, I felt something there, and what's coming up for Hamlet, I absolutely feel something there.
I agree.
This just didn't. It just didn't.
This is the exception.
It is just didn't get me emotionally, and I thought it's got to do a bit more than just look good for my liking. And I thought Denzel was, again, I thought he was actually the best version of Shakespeare I think I've seen him do. I mean, I really love Denzel Washington, but again, I agree with you, a bit one note, and I wasn't, and a bit, just a bit boring. I don't know, just a little bit.
Yep.
You know, there wasn't a lot of sort of.
I've seen Frances McDormand better as well, I think.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I mean, Lady Macbeth is such an iconic role. And again, a little bit flat. I don't know. I just found it. I wasn't invested in the characters, and
look, I agree. I wrote a note to myself here. Great actors, but there's not a strong sense of them as people, unlike the other two films.
Yeah,
I'm totally aligned.
Agree. But I think some of the most stunning visuals in there, which you'll see, is worth a look.
It will stay with me.
Yes, me too. And Brendan Gleeson, I really love Brendan Gleeson. I love him on screen. He's just phenomenal. Every time he just does something, he does it with ease.
Well, there was a great moment with ease. There's a great moment between him and Denzel Washington as Macbeth, when Macbeth goes to murder the king, and he's just sitting there by the bed in a quite intimate thing.
Yes.
And Duncan wakes up and is kind of pleased to see his friend and loyal subject, and then he slowly realises something's not right.
That's right.
That scene is very well done.
Very well done. Yeah, it is.
And one of Washington's best scenes in a film, I think. I'm also very fond of Bertie Carvel, who plays Banquo. Have you seen him before?
No. What's he been in?
Lots of things. I think he was the person who first performed the role of Miss Trunchbull in the stage musical of Matilda.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay.
I saw it in London years ago. It may have been him. I thought he was superb. When I first really noticed him, he played Jonathan Strange in a TV series called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which was set in sort of Dickensian or Napoleonic era.
Sure.
But in a world where magic was very strong. It was a really interesting story, and he was a very different character to this. Here he's kind of the gruff, reflective soldier. In that he was a very full of nervous energy kind of character. And at the moment he's playing Inspector Dalgleish in the TV series based on the the whodunit novels of P.D. James, where he's a very different character. He's a policeman who's also a poet.
Right.
Very quiet, very self-contained, very reflective. So I haven't seen him in the one, I think it's called The Doctor's Wife, where he plays the philandering husband. And again, he's supposed to be very good. There's something about him when he's on screen. I just love watching him. Now, say, these eyebrows look like, two shocked hedgehogs or something plastered across his brow. I'm not sure what they were really trying to do there. He's an actor who doesn't need that.
Yeah.
And so I found that a wee bit distracting, but I just love watching him perform. And another jarring note in it was Macduff Jr., the young child who Macbeth sends to slaughter the family. He had the weirdest American accent. Was it Southern American or something? His father, Macduff, had a bit of an accent.
I didn't really notice.
It was so pronounced. And I thought, here's a show that's set in ancient Scotland. It's all about thanes and witches and so on. And then you've got this American accent that just stood out. It didn't work for me. But these are little things. I mean, I think there's a general issue in this film about engaging with the characters as people and, as you say, getting drawn into their story. But it's stunning to look at. The other thing we probably should mention is the use of crows in this film. It's a very key visual metaphor.
It really is. And I love that. And at the very end, you see so many, it just ends on that.
Well, the collective noun for crows
is
a murder of crows.
A murder,
I think that's quite deliberate.
Yes, very, very good. I love that. I mean, again, visually.
Full-bodied black evil creatures who start off looking like vultures circling over the battle.
Yes.
The three who I think then transform into the witches, do they?
They do,
yes. They are what everyone else sees when Macbeth is being haunted by Banquo's ghost. And as you say, at the end, there's this whole cluster of them. We won't quite say what's happening, but they fly at the screen. It's almost like we're being attacked by them. And in that beautiful black and white cinematography, it absolutely works.
Oh, it does. I mean, part of me, I thought, I really liked them coming at you at the screen, but a part of me went, oh, God, okay, that's a bit of a schlocky ending. But I thought it could have been a bit.
Well, it really depends for me.
Just coming out, we're going to get you now.
Well, it taboo.
It's not, you know what I mean?
I do, but my problem with it was more that I didn't really understand. There's something going on with the whole, imagining of the Ross character that I kind of got and kind of felt like I was missing something about, and I felt a bit thick, and I hate feeling thick that I've missed something, but kind of got it and kind of thought maybe they should have just been a bit more obvious about what this is really trying to say, because the paying of the witches, or rather the old man, with that very beautiful, old, solid, I assume gold or silver coin.
Yeah.
And the way he looked at Lady Macbeth and so on, there's something else going on.
Yeah.
And the way he's conveniently in different locations in the play, where in the play, it's either Ross or it's Third Murderer or it's, I think, just a lord or something.
Yeah.
So I think the way they've done it is really quite good. I just think they just need to go a little extra step to try and make it a bit clear about what that whole subplot with Fleance was really about. I think I get it, but I just feel like I wanted a bit more of a nudge.
Yeah, I found myself going in and out of it. Just because, again, how I was talking about, as you're watching it, you should be able to just follow it and get it. I think sometimes it was suddenly starting to become just Shakespeare language, and I wasn't, and less to follow. And when you start getting disengaged from it.
Well, I actually at one stage called up the text on my iPad while I was watching the film.
Yeah.
Because I knew that there was... Well, initially because I wanted to see what they were doing with Ross, what was Ross and what wasn't. And then I started to realise they cut out huge chunks of different speeches and then moved some scenes around, moments within a scene around in a way I thought, why did you do that? But that's okay. That's their artistic choice. But I have to say, I've got one burning question about Macbeth and about Hamlet.
Yeah.
What is it that Shakespeare's got against Norway?
Yeah.
So in this, and this is in the original text, in this, the big battle where the traitor is defeated has betrayed the king to Norway. And we'll get to Hamlet, but, Norway's kind of the enemy on the outskirts as well. So maybe he didn't go to Italy in those missing years. Maybe he went to Norway and had a really bad time, and they didn't have Yelp reviews back then, so this was his way of saying Norway is bad news, baby. But in more Shakespearean language, obviously.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So what are you giving this?
I'm giving it a 6 out of 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's lower than I expected.
Really? No, it didn't engage me. I'm giving it a 6 only really because of the visuals.
Well, I was going to give this a 7.
Yeah.
And then I thought about it. I've actually bumped it up to an 8. Probably it's more like a 7.5, but I bumped it up to 8 just because of the visuals. The visuals are so stunning.
They are.
And I would watch the film again for the visuals.
See, I probably will too because it's so beautiful to look at. But a film's got to invest. I've got to get invested emotionally into it. Otherwise, I just find myself.
Well, that's what
bored.
caps it. I'm going to say 7.5.
Yeah,
that's what caps it at 7.5 for me. It really gets it up beyond 7, which is like a good film.
Yeah.
But this does have something extraordinary about it, which is just the look.
Yeah.
It is so compelling, so beautifully, masterfully executed.
Yeah.
And I use the word executed loosely in the context of Macbeth.
Yeah.
That it just works, and so I really think it's worth watching. And
it is. I'm telling you,
you could argue me down, but I think I need to argue you up a little bit too.
No, I don't think
6 feels a bit weak.
Not even that. No. I don't think so. Because by the end of it, I just went, yeah, beautiful to look at, but I was just ho-hum about how I was feeling about it all. And if you're not engaging with me emotionally, then I go, well. And it should be quite it's a bloody exciting piece. It really is. But it's not my favourite Shakespeare.
Well, as I say, this is one I had to learn chunks of speeches at school, so it's one that I have a certain fondness for already. I think this is the kind of film that in future will be studied in film schools, for example.
Oh, I think it will.
I just think it's made its mark, and
directorially,
so that's why I bump it up.
The thing is, I think photographically it's beautiful and wonderful. Directorially, I think it could have been directed a little bit better actor-wise.
I wonder if Joel's kind of missing the hand of Ethan.
I don't know, but it's. I mean, I really love their films. I'm a big fan of the Coen brothers. But yeah, just a little bit ho-hum for me.
So now, Ricardo, tell us about our third film, Hamlet, and let us know, is there nothing like a Dane?
Well, verily, the third production we must discourse on was to be the 9 dozen recreation of Hamlet. Released in 1996 and directed by Kenneth Branagh, who at this stage in his career was like the new Laurence Olivier, having adapted Shakespeare's Henry V, Much Ado About Nothing, Love Labour's Lost, As You Like It, in the space of 17 years. His adaptation of Hamlet is, in my opinion, his best effort. His critically acclaimed reinterpretation of Shakespeare's classic tragedy showcases expertly crafted set pieces, filmed beautifully in glorious 70mm film by Alex Thompson, wonderful production design by Tim Harvey, and a really intense performance from the renowned Sir Kenneth Branagh as Hamlet himself. Now, the story focuses around Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark. Set in the turbulent court of Denmark in the late 16th century, Hamlet seeks revenge against his uncle, Claudius, Derek Jacobi, for murdering his father, Brian Blessed, to become king, and marrying his mother, Gertrude, Julie Christie. After encountering the ghost of his father, Hamlet embarks on a mission of revenge, navigating the treacherous waters of his uncle's court to uncover the truth and take action. Through all of this, he has the love for Ophelia, Kate Winslet, who is the daughter of Polonius, Richard Briers, advisor to King Claudius. Ophelia and Hamlet share a strong passion for each other, but this coupling is met with resistance from those around them. Hamlet sets up a play within a play for the court, reenacting the death of his father, pushing Claudius to come up with a plot to kill Hamlet also. It all comes crumbling down, and after all, this is a tragedy. The film features an all-star cast, from the names already mentioned to Robin Williams, Jack Lemmon, Gerard Depardieu, Sir John Gielgud, Judi Dench, Richard Attenborough, Charlton Heston, Rufus Sewell, Timothy Spall, and Billy Crystal, who all accepted smaller roles in this production. Billy Crystal is just wonderful as the first
Well, you
grave
love Billy
digger.
Crystal.
But I think he's wonderful in this, and I think the role couldn't have been played better, in my opinion. It's a great performance there. Special mention to Nicholas Farrell as Horatio, Hamlet's close friend, and Michael Maloney as Laertes, Ophelia's brother, both shining in their roles. Branagh's direction of the film is superb and really captures the power of the play's language with long takes, allowing the viewer to just watch, listen, and understand. It is the only film version that honours the entire play, making the film quite long at over 4 hours. But to me, it just doesn't ever feel long, providing the audience with the time to dwell on the characters' motivations and psychological states. Patrick Doyle's music composition is another highlight, but one scene in particular is just really iconic to me now, and it's beautifully done. No, it's not the to be or not to be scene or the alas poor Yorick scene, but it's the scene where he sees his father's ghost. It's such a powerful, intense, and impressive scene, with Branagh masterfully conveying the combination of fear and sorrow that Hamlet experiences upon seeing his father as the ghost. And Brian Blessed's performance is just perfect as Father King Hamlet. It really is a must-see film. Now, some will find Branagh over the top at times and really over-theatrical, but I just think he's had his best here. He just understands Shakespeare so well, and he directs the material superbly. You never not know what's going on here, which is the mark of a well-directed Shakespeare. If in Melbourne, occasionally it still plays at the Astor Theatre in its 70mm glory, but if you can't see it this way, then settle for the digital download or DVD. To me, it's a masterpiece. Greg.
Now, you'd seen this before, hadn't you?
Oh, I've
on
seen
the big
it.
screen?
I've seen it twice in 70mm at the Astor. I spent 4 hours there, and it's beautiful to see it that way.
Well, I watched it on my largest TV at home via DVD.
Yeah. I'm really interested here. Come on.
So you said it's over 4 hours?
Yes.
It's 4 hours and 2 minutes.
There we go.
Allegedly.
Just over, yeah.
So for me, it's 2 discs.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
it has an intermission.
Yes, it does.
Which it does at the movies as well, which frankly you need, because it's a long ask. And if nothing else, you need to go to the toilet.
Well, the intermission comes at something like 2 hours and 45 minutes, or 2 hours and a half hours.
It's well over halfway.
That's right. It's well over halfway. So the second act is not that. Second half is not,
which is well judged.
As bad. Yeah, it is.
So I was dreading this. I think you and I had a conversation. We're saying, "Oh God, 4 hours, really?" And I know that Kenneth Branagh can be liable, maybe more in recent years, to vanity projects. And I think this is a vanity project, but in a good way. He wanted to make the first film that does the entire uncut script of Hamlet, which is why it's so long.
Yep.
He stuffs it to the brim with well-regarded actors.
Yep.
You missed one, Rosemary Harris.
Oh, yes, of course.
Who plays, what is she, the player queen?
The player queen, that's
Heston's
right.
Player
Yes,
King.
that's right, yes.
And it's full of actors that he has worked with for a long time that are important mentors to him. So apparently his 2 chief mentors when he started out were Gielgud and Jacobi. In fact, a teenage Brenner went to see Jacobi on stage, and that transformed his life, where he had been thinking about a few different careers, and that was what latched him onto acting.
Well, he is pretty amazing, and he's in a few Derek Jacobi. He's in a few Kenneth Branagh films, obviously, and Dead Again was one of them, which I first saw them together. It's a very good thriller, Dead Again. It's a really good one.
Yes, well, you and I both love that. And Gielgud and Dench, for example,
really small.
Don't have much to do at all.
They don't.
But it's really more of a personal tribute.
Yes.
Do you know who played Yorick?
Oh, I missed. Yeah, who was that again?
Ken Dodds.
Right. Yes.
So for those who aren't as familiar with Ken Dodds, and I don't know that he's very well known here in Australia, and I'd be surprised if he's known at all in the US, but I had part of my childhood in England, so I knew his face straight away. He was someone who'd been, a great entertainer in England since the mid-50s, and was known for being a comedian, a singer, one of the last great music hall entertainer kind of people.
Yes.
And often told surreal kind of jokes. So to pick him in the English context, to pick him as Yorick is very smart.
Yeah.
So look, I really enjoyed seeing all those faces in there. I'm a big fan of Nicholas Farrell. I've really loved him ever since I first saw him playing Teddy, who was the buffoonish character in that TV miniseries, The Jewel and the Crown.
Yes, right.
And he was one of the people in that show who absolutely struck me.
Well, he's very good.
And watched him ever since. He's in The Bleak Midwinter, which is Branagh's film about a group of actors trying to put on a production of Hamlet.
Yes.
Oh, look, he's in so many things. He's a very well-respected actor, but not necessarily as well-known as I think he ought to be. But love watching him. As say, he played Horatio.
But people have issues with some of the big stars who have had roles in this, and I think you'll probably get to the ones you don't like either.
I've only got one I don't really like.
Really? And I think, was that Robin Williams?
No.
Or Jack Lemmon?
Jack Lemmon.
Yeah.
And I really do like Jack Lemmon.
So do I.
But he was an example of someone...
He's the weakest.
He's an American actor who just hasn't got the ear, and half the time... because I latched onto him because he's Jack Lemmon. Half the time he seems to be standing there and kind of watching the other actors rather than being engaged in what's being said. I'm not sure how well he understood it,
no,
frankly.
I agree. And I remember the first time I saw it, which was in 97. I think it was not long after it came out. Very excited about it. Oh, wow, Jack Lemmon was a bit weak in that. He just didn't really get it. So it still stays the same.
But you know who was really impressive and completely gives the lie to the Americans can't do Shakespeare theory is Charlton Heston was a revelation.
Yes, very good.
He's very good. I tend to think of him as being Moses and Planet of the Apes.
Yes.
And he was really good in this part.
He
spoke Shakespeare like it was natural speech.
He did.
He was really good.
He did.
And Rosemary Harris wasn't far behind, actually.
No,
they were a good
well.
screen couple.
Yeah.
I found Richard Bryce as Polonius genuinely funny in parts.
I really loved
He really carried that off well.
I did.
And Michael Maloney, I had the privilege of seeing him many years ago in the RSC on stage in London.
Oh, wow.
Playing Romeo.
Oh, right.
He played Romeo, and Tim McInerney from Blackadder and many other things played his mate Mercutio.
Yes.
And they were a great pairing because Mercutio was very funny.
Yes.
And Maloney as Romeo was just full of this pent-up, intense energy. And he is a very intense actor. Like, if you see him in this as Laertes, he's like, that's what drives him.
But at the very beginning, he's very sort of...
but when things go wrong... Yeah, he gets really intense.
He's very good.
Have you seen Branagh's Belfast?
No, not yet.
I watched it in the last few days just as kind of my prep. And he's in that, but he's playing a very different character. I mean, he's a much older guy now.
Yes.
And he's in quite a lot of, BBC whodunits and so on as well. And in Belfast, he plays a very settled, older kind of character. So it's interesting to see him transition. But he is someone who brings a lot of energy, certainly in this era, to his performances. And he nails Laertes. I mean, beyond Jack Lemmon, I don't think there's any performances here I'd fault. And what really makes this work in a way that, as we said, Macbeth didn't work, is this is the first time I've seen different productions of Hamlet, and people have done different things with Hamlet.
Yes.
This is, I think, the first time I've seen it where I really felt like I understood his journey.
Yeah, and I'm telling you,
you meet him about 15 minutes into the film, and the first thing you see is he's kind of skulking at the back of the court in that amazing Hall of Mirrors.
The Hall of Mirrors.
Really works.
Oh, my goodness.
As metaphor and practical and how they do things.
Very hard to film. Very hard.
Well, there is a blooper apparently.
Is there really? Oh,
Yes, apparently I didn't see it. I read about it afterwards, but in I think it's one of the early scenes in the court, you see the cameras in the mirrors.
Oh, I don't know.
I missed it.
I've never noticed. I've seen it twice on the big screen.
We'll have to go back and find
I'm
it now.
so into it though when I'm watching it. I mean,
Brandon's performance, you're right. It is absolutely superb. And I say, I felt like I understood Hamlet. I understood his emotional journey more than I had before. You're right. The scene with his ghost father is very well done, and that's because
I'm getting tingles just thinking about.
Well, that's because of the two performances, but also the way it was filmed.
Absolutely,
it reminded me a bit of like a mid-20th, late 20th century Japanese horror film or spooky film. It was very The Fishing Ground.
Yes. The extreme close-ups of the of the mouths,
and the unusual eyes in the Ghost King.
Absolutely.
And I kept trying to see Brian Blessed's eyes in the scenes, the flashbacks when he was alive, and you never really clearly saw his eyes, but they're this startling kind of blue centres to almost white eyes, and very, very unusually for Brian Blessed. All his lines are whispered. Now he's the guy with that booming
voice.
Is he Welsh?
Yes.
Booming voice.
Yes.
That is very declarative, even when he's sort of playing himself in other things. To have Brian Blessed whispering, and then to go into the flashbacks, and I was waiting to think, maybe then we hear his great voice, and we don't. He's very restrained in this performance, and again, it just really works.
It really does. A few people have had issues. Sometimes I've heard a few people talk about, Brenner putting a sex scene with Ophelia in there, which is a flashback. That not needing to do that, but but him doing that. But I don't.
It was relatively chaste.
It is
to watch the film. Who knows?
But also,
to watch.
but to me, it just engages you into what their love story is. I mean, and their journey. So I don't have any issue with that at all, really.
I wasn't entirely convinced by Gerard Depardieu as Reynaldo.
Oh, but the character's not that. No, it's not the greatest character.
No, it kind of felt like he'd been dropped in.
Yeah, it does.
Because they're not cutting anything.
No.
I imagine this character's probably often cut because I don't remember hearing about him before.
Yeah.
So that they drop in Depardieu to play a French character, which again works in terms of star power.
Yes.
But if anything, I found that a little bit distracting.
Yeah.
But I agree. Billy Crystal as the Gravedigger was really good. Probably his best performance, actually, that I think I've seen, because I'm not always his biggest fan. There's some things I love. Our very first episode was Forget Paris. Which I really love as a film.
Yeah, and I didn't.
But sometimes I can take or leave Billy Crystal, but I just thought he was great in this. I thought Robin Williams was fine.
Yeah.
Apparently they wouldn't allow Williams and Crystal on the set at the same time because all their joking and mucking around, because they're such great mates, meant that no work would get done, basically. They're too distracting.
Well,
but I thought he was good.
It's an important scene, that scene, the Gravedigger scene. It's the classic, Yorick scene. It's classic. So it really needs that, but he brings so much to it. And he does the same old Billy Crystal
shtick. But it's a wisecracking character.
Absolutely. Yeah. I thought it was very, very well done. And the thing is, one thing I find with this is I get, you talk about going on the journey, on the emotional journey of Hamlet. I feel in this movie, I feel the love for his father.
Which I hadn't done before.
The anger towards Claudius. I really felt it. And that really makes for it heightens the whole thing when you get it and you understand that and you really feel his emotion. It's just, that connects with me. Whereas, in a way, Macbeth never did.
Chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
In the same way that I was very reminded of The Seventh Seal by the Macbeth film, the ending of this, in particular, really reminded the funeral scene.
Yes.
Really reminded me of Dr. Zhivago.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because Julie Christie, is in both.
She's in both. Oh, she's wonderful as well. I love her.
Yes, she does very well.
I love her. Yeah, she's wonderful. Oh.
So, I didn't know if that was a deliberate reference or not, but it certainly had that feel. Something about the colours and the fact it's a big epic kind of story as well.
Yes.
And there were lots of soldiers in the scene.
Yes.
Something just said to me, Zhivago for some reason. Now, this film wasn't a success at the box office, and I think, unsurprisingly, Shakespeare, 4 hours, it's not going to draw a crowd.
Well, they released a 2-hour version of the film. I never saw that, and I don't think I will, and I don't think I will see it. Why?
To get people to go, I think.
Yeah, that's why for me, why? I would watch the 2-hour version now. But yes, they needed people to see it, and, bums on seats and everything like that. Back in 1996, it was all about that. So it's in the cinemas and it still is now. But
the last figure I could find was it had a budget of $18 million US dollars, and so far its gross is just under $5 million.
Yes,
so it's got a long way to go.
It's a long way to go.
It's more of a prestige and in a nice kind of way a vanity project, I think, but a good thing to have done and to have done well.
Apparently, Branagh knows about the Astor, and it's showing at the Astor in 70mm.
So when's he coming?
Well, apparently, I don't know whether he has or not. I'm not sure if he has or not, but he's aware of it because I remember when the Astor was showing it, it was mentioned that he said, "Oh well, it's amazing that they're actually still playing my film in 70mm at the Astor Cinema."
Quarter of a century later.
Yeah, and so I think he was very proud of that it was still showing in 70mm. I think, but yeah, it looks beautiful on the big screen. It really does. I mean, the photography's gorgeous. Look at all three films, beautifully.
Oh yes,
beautifully visual and well done.
Now I know how much you love this film.
Yeah.
Have you played the game?
No.
Have you heard of the game?
No.
So there is a spin-off game.
Oh, really?
Entitled...
Of course there is, Greg. Of course there is.
Entitled Hamlet,
yes.
A Murder Mystery.
Okay.
Where directed by a historian called Jean-Pierre Isbou, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Which is a co-production between Pantheon and Castle Rock. Arguably, I'm quoting here from Wikipedia, arguably the first video game based on a Shakespeare work. The CD-ROM is divided into two parts. Can you guess what those two parts are called?
No.
To Be and Not To Be. To Be is where players can play Hamlet in the narrative.
Yeah.
And Not To Be is where they can read the texts. And in gameplay, again, I'm reading here, folks. In gameplay, players wander through the castle trying to locate the killer. Including material from the film with original footage, as well as other animation games and puzzles. Now, who's the killer?
Well, it's got to be Claudius.
Does it? Because you know what's interesting is the choice. Because, in fact, I'm pretty sure James Thurber, the American humorist, wrote a short story, decades ago, about his narrator character sharing a train ride with a woman who tells him she's just finished reading Macbeth and what a great whodunit it was, and then unpacks the whole plot as though it is a whodunit and Macbeth is being framed. So I'm not quite sure how Hamlet does that. I'd quite like to see the Macbeth one, actually.
Yeah.
But anyway, be that as it may. I just want to put one more little pop cultural footnote to this.
Yes.
Have you ever seen the musical of Hamlet on Gilligan's Island?
No, I haven't. And I will say something, though. I was going to ask you whether you'd seen any film versions of Hamlet.
Yes, I've seen Mel Gibson's.
Yes, I haven't seen Mel Gibson's Hamlet.
I liked it. It's a very, very different show.
Yeah.
Glenn Close as Gertrude. Can't remember who played Ophelia. And his Hamlet is a much more action-oriented kind of figure, as you'd kind of expect.
Of course.
But more reflective and, interior than I expected from Gibson, actually. It was quite good.
Well, a lot of people liked Gibson in that. And I haven't seen it. I know it's Zeffirelli. I should probably see it. But now that I've seen... Branagh's Hamlet was the first Hamlet I'd seen on screen, right? And even in a play version, now if I watch a shorter version...
No, actually, I don't entirely agree. So we have a mutual friend, Natasha, who some years ago wrote and directed a very trimmed-down version of Hamlet, and trimmed down also in character, so it became more of a domestic drama, pretty much. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, right.
It was a very interesting, reimagining or reworking of the Hamlet story.
Yeah.
But she wasn't trying to taking the big Hamlet and cutting it down a bit. She was doing something quite radical with it, which I thought really, really worked.
Yeah.
Hello, Natasha, because I know Natasha listens. But that's all a very neat sidestep from my Gilligan's Island question. So you've never seen this episode.
No.
I'm going to have to find it for you. There's an episode where, pretty sure it's Phil Silvers, plays a Hollywood or Broadway producer who is shipwrecked on their island and actually has a boat, not shipwrecked, he flees to their island, and he has a boat tucked away which the castaways can't find.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to go back to civilization because he's had this big flop. So the castaways decide the only way they can get off the island is to inspire him with a production that he has to go back and do. And the only records they've got are Mrs. Howe's old opera records.
Yeah.
And so that you have all these moments from the story of Hamlet where you see little excerpts of what they've done with all these very well-known tunes. And, for instance, I could not watch the Polonius scene in other productions I've seen. I can't watch the scene where Polonius gives life advice to his son Laertes without hearing Skipper sing to his son, played by Marianne, I'm pretty sure, in a funny wig, where he sings, "Neither a beggar nor a lender be, do not forget, stay out of debt." And then you've got Ginger Ophelia singing, "Hamlet, my dear, your problem is clear, avenging thy father's death." And it's wonderful. So I can't watch the Polonius scene in particular without that being in my head now, and I don't
know if I want to see this.
And I can't hear those pieces of classical music now without hearing those lyrics.
Yeah.
It was really. I won't tell you how the story ends on Gilligan's because I don't want to spoil it for you. But spoiler alert: they don't get off the island. We kind of ruin the whole show. But there's a lot in Hamlet that you can play with, but there's a lot in here to really play with in a different sense and make meaningful, which I think Branagh absolutely does.
Oh, he does. He
So
does.
are you giving us a 10?
I'm giving it a 10. Yes.
I'm giving it a 9.
Okay, great.
I
I was just hoping that you would give this.
Look, I started out, I was going to give it an 8.
Yep.
A few days ago, and it was good that I had a chance to kind of walk away from it and come back and think about it, because I really think it is done so well, and mostly because it was the first time I've been able to enter into the emotional life, particularly of Hamlet, but not just, to understand, well, actually really about Hamlet, to understand the progress he goes to, which has always been a bit opaque to me in the past. I think it's really there. So I boosted it up to a 9. I think it is a bit long. I think you could cut some bits. I'm sorry. And 4 hours is a big ask.
It is, but for me, it never feels long. Ever.
Look.
It got to intermission really quickly for me.
Yeah.
And then I went, look, okay. But I've seen it a lot. I mean, I've seen it quite a few times. I mean, I really love it. I think
you have to have a sleep. This is not one to watch when you're tired.
No, don't watch it when you're tired. No, don't.
Because you'll tune out.
I mean, it's never boring, ever. But it's
not boring, but you might not get hooked.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, be ready for it, and you'll enjoy it.
Forsooth, verily.
So that concludes our Millennial Shakespeare episode.
It does. Now, it's funny that we accidentally ended up on this one talking about Macbeth and Hamlet as whodunits.
Yeah, that's
because what's our next episode, Ricardo?
It is Whodunits of Interest.
It is. Da, da, da. That's our new theme song.
Da, 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 da. So the first film we're going to discuss in our Whodunits of Interest episode is And Then There Were None from 1945.
Which is one of the early filmings of an Agatha Christie novel, a very famous one. And then we're going to look at a film from 1973. One of my favourites. It's not all that well known, but got a couple of interesting features about it. It's called The Last of Sheila.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to it. I haven't seen it.
That's the Australian one, is it? The Last of Sheila.
I haven't seen any of those, actually, any of those. And then the third film we're going to discuss is 2001's Robert Altman film, Gosford Park, which I have seen.
I've actually seen all 3 of these.
Oh, right, there we go.
Not for a while for all of them, but I have seen them, yeah. I think they'll be interesting conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like a good whodunit. I better, I want to see if I can guess these, except for especially the first 2.
Cool.
That's right. So thank you so much for listening.
We hope you felt inspired to partake of some more Shakespearean.
I think everybody can brush up their Shakespeare occasionally.
And can I just end, Ricardo, by saying, good night, sweet prince, and may flights of angels sing thee to thy rest.